Welcome back, Trinidad and Tobago. I'm Hema Ramsey, and thanks again for inviting us into your homes. And yes, we have changed our locations this morning. We're coming to you live from the Hyatt Regency Hotel, and the reason we're here, well, it's one of the biggest events on the business calendar, and that is the Health, Safety, Security, Environment Conference and Exhibition. And this is being brought to you by AmCham. This is the 16th edition of this event, and joining us on set this morning, Kurt Cadet. Now, Kurt is actually the chair of the committee that has been putting on this conference. So you've been attached to this conference for the last 16 years?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Kurt.
Yes, I have been.
Now, this year, you have an interesting speaker, so maybe it's about time we reveal to the public who we can expect to join us in Trinidad.
It's the Robert F. Kennedy
Now, Robert
Jr.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He is world-renowned. He's done a number of studies. He's an author, a well-known speaker, and he's a champion of causes, various causes, and specifically sustainable development, environmental issues, and tackling the real issues as we move forward as a nation. But Mr. Cat, looking at the conference, it's 16 years.
Yes.
You have been with this event since its inception with AmCham. How has it changed, and what exactly has changed? How has it progressed?
Well, it's certainly changed in size. When we started back in 96 or 95, 96, around there, the conference was a lot smaller. It was mainly local content. And what we've been able to do now is to grow it in terms of the numbers and the type of speakers that we have coming in. And every year we try to bring in a speaker that is well known to boost the image of and the content of the conference.
Now, this says Health, Safety, Security, Environment, same name, but obviously each year you're going to have a different focus. I see Pathway to Sustainable Development, Human, Economic, and Environmental Progress. How do you determine the theme of each conference?
Well, the theme is thought of by the committee members, the committee, the HSSE committee. We start brainstorming and we look for areas that we feel the country needs to focus in. And we always look for a theme that would promote the growth of the HSSE theme in Trinidad.
Now, it's a two-day event broken up into various workshops, conferences, mini-conferences. What is the format of the program? Maybe we can tell our viewers if they're looking this morning.
Well, this morning would be the opening ceremony, the plenary session. I believe we have Dr. Botiwari,
right,
would be
yes.
the featured speaker this morning. After the opening ceremony, they would have a tour of the conference exhibition aisles, and following that would be workshops would start running concurrently, running parallel, so you would have the environment as well as health and safety sessions running in parallel.
Now, one of the first event, environmental panel discussion that's taking place this morning as well after the opening ceremony, Human, Economic, and Environmental Progress, Practical Applications to Achieve the Balance. And the moderator, you have some of the key personnel attached to various industry. Academia, you have John Agard. Non-governmental, Dr. Howard Nelson. Government, you have an official from the Ministry of Planning and Sustainable Development. And Economics, Dr. Marlene Atz. Obviously a balance. Is that something that you deliberately did? And how did you determine what sector to invite and what not to invite to be part of the discussion panel?
Yes, I would say it is deliberate. What we look for usually in any of our panel discussions is a balance, representative of the key sectors within the country. And we want to have here a forum that is neutral and that we could discuss sometimes contentious issues. So we try to bring a mix of personalities and people from the various sectors of the society.
What are some of the contentious issues do you think are facing the industry at this time?
Well, sustainable development on its whole, in terms of we want to progress the country, so we have to use the natural resources, but are we using the natural resources wisely, and are we leaving resources for future generations? So there's always a mix. I mean, there's controversies about whether or not you drill for more oil in Alaska.
Right.
Some people, they don't want it, but yet still the country, I guess, the United States needs the oil. So there's always that balance of depleting the resources or destroying the environment in order to gain the resources.
And it's interesting that you make that point, because we're in an interesting time. The budget is actually going to be announced on Monday, looking at our revenue stream, looking at the way that revenue expenditure, but the energy industry accounts for almost 50% of the country's GDP. Activity, environmentally friendly activities, ensuring that refinery, that all of the major industries are up to date. Many say that, okay, the international companies are compliant because of their international partners, but the local industries are lagging behind. Is there any truth to that?
Well, I believe, yes, there is truth to it. The sector is really led by the foreign-based multinational companies. However, there's a benefit to that. The local sector, the local companies are being drawn with them. So they raise their level of performance in terms of HSE management.
Do you think that, I mean, there is the OSH legislation in place, a number of legislative pieces are on the legislative agenda, but is enough being done? And also, let's start from the very beginning. The OSH and the inspectorate, when everyone became OSH compliant. Is everyone OSH compliant almost a decade later?
I very much doubt it.
And why do you think there's this lag? Is it that we don't have the resources? And I mean, we have conferences like this almost every year for the last 16 years. So obviously, key personnel in the industry understand the importance of tying this into their best practices.
Well, let's put it into perspective. You mentioned the energy-based companies. You will tend to find that the energy-based companies are OSH compliant. One of the goals of this conference is to attract non-energy sector representatives. And we believe that conferences like this would assist in getting the non-energy sector companies, the smaller manufacturing companies, the financial sector, getting them aware of the requirements and getting them interested in being compliant.
Non-energy sector companies, now looking at the manufacturing sector and the way that they are run, they are a lot smaller, their capital base is a lot less. They will sometimes look at it and think, well, I don't know if I can afford to be 100% compliant. And I'm pretty sure that as the chair of this committee, you've heard that.
Yes, but can they afford not to be compliant? You know, one serious incident could destroy a company. A fatality could destroy a small company. They could go into massive losses based on one incident, one major fire, and it could take them out of business. So they must really ask themselves, can we afford to be not compliant? And whilst we haven't gotten to the stage in Trinidad yet where people are being prosecuted and fined and imprisoned, we would come to that eventually.
Should we take it to that extreme where we need to have some sort of punishment or negative reinforcement to allow for practices to change? Will we not be the people that influence a change?
I think that there must be punitive consequences. Whilst forums like this tend to focus on the positive and to show why we should do it, I think there will always be some businesses out there that are bent on not compliant with the law and to operate in an unsafe and environmentally unfriendly manner, and therefore you must have laws and punitive action to keep those.
Are you hoping to see these laws in the budget?
No, I doubt that we would see any laws in terms of HSE in the budget. What we might see is packages to stimulate the sector.
And specifically, if you had to speak to the Minister of Finance, I'm pretty sure that the budget is already prepared. But if you had to give him some advice a couple days before, what would you hope to see? And I'm going to also, specifically, because I know that you're dealing with making a presentation this morning, managing workplace fatality.
Well, I would be a little bit biased in that difficult question you asked me. And I would say that the government needs to put more resources and focus on the OSH authority. I think after the years that they have been in existence, they are still not where they ought to be. You know, they don't have an executive director. They miss a lot of the deputy directors. They're still not up to the level of staffing for inspectors and stuff. So my bias would be towards improving that infrastructure.
Do we have the resources to put it in place? When I talk specifically about the know-how, the knowledge, the HR capabilities, if we talk about the inspectorate, do we have trained personnel in those areas? And is it an attractive sector to say that, okay, I'm going to leave my well-paying job in AmCham or the international company to go and work for the inspectorate?
Well, that has always been a challenge. Now, it is attractive, and I think the whole HSE sector in Trinidad is becoming more popular. All the schools that offer courses, their classes are filled. There are hundreds of graduates that come out every year. In terms of the higher up positions, it would be challenging to get somebody from the energy-based sector to go over to the government because of salaries. It's a challenge.
I can understand. I can see that happening. But this morning you're making a presentation, Managing Workplace Fatality. What can we expect to hear from you?
Well, managing a workplace fatality it's based on personal experience, unfortunately. And it's really about sharing my experience, having worked with more than one company that experienced fatalities. So it is really about sharing that experience with my colleagues in the HSE business for them to understand, what they could expect when that happens.
The majority of accidents that take place on the workplace, is it as a result of human error? Is it mechanical error? What are the major contributing factors?
It will be a combination. I'm not in a position to say what the majority would have been, but you have a combination of factors. You have the human factor, the human behavior. You have poor management systems, you have poor management commitment. So there are a number of contributing factors that would lead to a serious accident.
Kurt, a number of times the union officials call for the heads of those in charge of the company where the accidents have occurred. Do you think it's about time we start seeing companies being held 100% or the findings of these investigations be made public and taking on our next level of investigation, prosecution maybe?
But before I answer that, I would like to say that the role of the unions, I think the unions need to be a little more proactive and less reactive, particularly when it comes to health and safety and protection of the environment. And I believe that they need to get more involved, before things happen to ensure that they don't happen. Not just, you sit back and something happens and then you blame the management of the company. I think we need to look to see what contributions we as the union make to prevent that from happening. In terms of having deeper investigations, believe me, when there is a serious accident or fatality, there is significant depth to the investigation.
Okay.
And I believe that the information could be made available, pending any court matters and stuff like that.
Okay, well, we just have a couple minutes to wrap this interview. You are making one of the presentations this morning. You are also the chairperson in charge of the committee that puts on this conference, the 16th annual Health, Safety, Security and Environment Conference that's taking place at the Hyatt Regency Hotel. Your closing comments, Trinidad and Tobago.
Again, like I said, our challenge, the AmCham HSSE challenge, is to get the non-energy sector, the non-energy and heavy manufacturing sector, people involved in these types of conferences so that it could help them, assist them in their respective businesses. Ensuring
that you are best practice compliant. What is best practice? Ensuring that you are OSH compliant and that all of your HSSE policies are up to date. You cannot afford to not implement it properly. That's according to Kurt Cadet. We now take a very, very short break. When we come back, we'll have more for you. Stay with us.